Okay. Good evening, everyone. It is so nice to see you all, although it is virtual. I know many of you are not going to be able to be with us in shul. This is not actually the sermon I'll be delivering in shul, where we will have very limited time, so it'll just be a very quick thought, but I very much just wanted to have this opportunity to spend some time together as we enter into the final day of the year, getting ready for Rosh Hashana, to learn a little bit together, to reflect a little bit together. What a year this has been. It's really hard to imagine that I'm standing in an empty shul right now. Hard to imagine exactly a year ago as we all stood in shul, who could have imagined what this year was going to bring? 6 months ago, literally it was 6 months ago to the day, on Friday, 6 months ago exactly, that we closed shul up. And who would have imagined? If you think back to 6 months ago, if I would have told you 6 months ago that Israel would sign a peace treaty with the United Arab Emirates, if I would have told you 6 months ago that it would be impossible to go and visit our homeland, that you cannot go. I cannot go to see my parents, my sisters, you can't go. If I would have told you can't go to Eretz Yisrael, if I would have told you the Habs were going to make the playoffs, all three of those things, you would have said to me in March, impossible. There's no way that can happen. And forget about a year ago, just the last 6 months have brought such unbelievable turmoil to us. I find we're exhausted. I think we're just exhausted from the entire experience over the last 6 months. We are worn down. The adrenaline that might have been there in the beginning as we embarked on this journey together, this new world, all the restrictions, trying to figure it out, making sure that we were going to be safe for Pesach time, that adrenaline has long worn off. And it's just old. It's just old, and now we're into the unknown of what's going to be. When is this going to end? What's going to happen now as the second wave seems to be beginning here and new restrictions seem to be on the way? Just today, we spent the entire day, your lay leadership in the shul, with new restrictions that we were told about. We weren't sure exactly what they were going to be, but everybody's concerned about the uptick in cases here in Montreal. And there's a sense when you don't know what's happening, that is one of the hardest things to deal with. Twice, in the very beginning of the story of Bereshis with Avraham Avinu, twice, Hashem purposely leaves out information. When Hashem tells him to leave his homeland, Lech Lecha, and he doesn't tell him where to go, Ela Eretz Asher Ar'eka, just to the land that I will show you. And Rashi points out, there's something more difficult, more challenging, when you don't know where you're going. There's no clear goal, objective. I just need to get to this destination and then I'll be there. When you don't know where you're headed and when the journey will end, it just makes it all the more difficult and exhausting. Hashem does it to him again at the Akedah, the story of the binding of Isaac, which we'll read about on Rosh Hashana, in which Hashem tells him, Kach lecha es bincha, take your son, as Yechidcha, your only one, Asher Ahavta, the one you love, and then finally, as Yitzchak. And Rashi again there points out, he builds it up, he doesn't tell him right away, and all of that is to increase the reward for Avraham, because when we don't know where we're going, it makes it a little bit more difficult. And that's the reality. That's the reality that we find ourselves in, yearning, hoping for an end. And I'd like to say the following. I'm sure you're familiar with the game of taboo. Taboo is where, the different participants on your team have to try, you have a certain word and you have to have everybody on your team guess that word, but there are certain words you're not allowed to say, which makes it obviously more difficult to tell them what you're thinking of when you can't use the obvious words. I'd like to play taboo tonight, and I'm going to attempt to deliver these words without using the word corona, without using the word virus, without using the word restrictions, without using the word 50 people in a room, or any of those obvious words. And just let's take the next 20 or so minutes together and just focus on what's coming. Just a group of Jews together, one congregation, one kehillah, getting ready for the most magnificent of days to crown Hashem as our king, to focus on the people that we want to be. Let's take these few minutes. You'll test me and see if I succeed. I'm not sure if I'll make it, but I'm going to try. to be able to just focus for these next minutes on getting ready for this big day of Rosh Hashana. There's a word that I'd like to focus on tonight, and that is the word doresh. Doresh means lidrosh, to seek out, to look into something, to try to see the actual meaning or value that's beyond just the surface. Sometimes you could look at something and you see it right away. To be doresh means to seek, to search, to discover what's really there. We actually are going to use this phrase numerous times in the Machzor. I'd like to highlight a couple of them that we're actually going to say, but really talk about this word in three different contexts. Just one of them, just parenthetically, that we're going to mention when we talk about in Musaf, the section of Zichronos, where Hashem remembers, we're going to say the words, Atah doresh ma'aseh kulam. You look into all of our deeds. You don't just scan over and check them out. You look into, perceive deeply and clearly everything that we are going to do. And Hashem will look into that as he is doresh. The three aspects of the word doresh that I'd like to focus on is number one, our relationship with Hashem, to be a doresh, to know what it means to seek and to search. Number two, interpersonally, one Jew to another, how to be a doresh, what it means to be a doresh into the well-being of someone else. And number three, within ourselves, what it means to live as a doresh, as one who seeks, one who is searching, and one who is looking. Let's start with the first of those, to be a doresh in our relationship of what it means to seek Hashem. I'd like to share with you a fantastic story. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the Lord Chief Rabbi, former Chief Rabbi of England, shares the following story, a true story which took place in 1995, concerning a man by the name of Ernest Onions. Ernest Onions was a farmer. He lived in East Anglia, the easternmost section of England. And this guy was an eclectic kind of fellow. He didn't just dress in a funny manner, which he did. His profession, how he made his living, he was a supplier of pig swill. He would buy and sell the leftover food. Pigs, of course, would eat anything. And he was in that business, in that industry. He had his farm. But he was a little bit paranoid. And he was always afraid of being robbed. So he had rigged his own personal home alarm system. He didn't want to hire another company with batteries and all sorts of gadgets. And he slept with a loaded shotgun under his bed every night. And amongst all of his eclectic behaviors was one that didn't quite fit with the nature of everything else that he did. And that was that he loved art. He was an art collector, and he would go around. He wasn't a man of great means that he would go to the fancy art auctions, but wherever there would be a small local art auction in his area, he would go around and he would travel and he would place bids, and over the years collected quite a pile of artwork. Now I say pile because he didn't have a place to hang them. He didn't have a place to display them. So when his house filled up, there was no more space on the walls, he literally began to pile artwork in his chicken coops. And outside, in his barns, in the farm, he had piles and piles of artwork. His children did not share his love of collecting artwork. And when this man passed away in 1995, his children flipped through everything, were not interested in any of it, and contacted Sotheby's, who were going to put it out on an auction and fetch whatever they could fetch for the artwork. The way that they would do that is they would put out a brochure with all the various pictures of the artwork that was going to be auctioned off, little small snapshots. And a great art expert by the name of Sir Dennis Mahone, passed away in 2011, was scanning it through, looking to see what he might want to purchase. If my technical guy is listening, he's going to give you the screen, I hope right now, of the picture that he noticed. There it is. This is a picture that was cataloged as by a little-known artist of the 17th century named Pietro Testa. And Sotheby's expected to be able to get about £15,000 for this artwork. Now, this was titled The Sack of Carthage. Carthage, of course, was sacked by the Romans around the year 150 before the Common Era. And you could see the Roman imagery of the battle leading into its destruction and the fire emanating from the building in the back. This art collector, Ernest Onions, had purchased this back in 1940 for 12 pounds. And now, some 50 years later, they expected to get about 15,000 pounds for him. But this art collector, Sir Dennis Mahone, as he's scanning it through, he noticed it's just the size of a stamp. There's something odd about this particular painting. You might notice right in the middle, around all of the carnage, in the back, right in front of the building that's on fire, are 3 golden vessels being carried out of the building. One of them, the rightmost of the 3 golden vessels, is a menorah. And this collector, Sir Dennis Mahone, said, a menorah? What would a 7-armed menorah be doing in the sack of Carthage? And this particular Mahone character, who was well educated, said, that's not the sack of Carthage. That's the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. That's a painting of the destruction of the Second Temple. And if that's what it is, this wasn't painted by a relatively unknown 17th century artist, Pietro Testa. This must be the work of a great 17th century artist known as Nicholas Poussin. He was known to have painted 2 paintings of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. One of them was hanging in an art museum in Vienna at the time. And the second one, which had been commissioned in 1626 by Cardinal Barberini, had disappeared. In the 1700s, sometime after it had been commissioned, they lost track of this. Only one of 2 paintings of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash had fallen off the planet. Nobody knew where it was. And Sir Dennis Mahone sees this catalog and says, I found it. This is the painting of the second painting of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. The auction begins, and Sir Dennis Mahone places a bid. Now, everybody there who thinks it's the sack of Carthage by some little-known painter, and not worth much, all of a sudden, Sir Dennis Mahone puts in a bid, and everyone says to themselves, I don't know what this is, but if he wants it, it's valuable. The bidding goes up and up and up. No one has any idea what they're bidding for except for Mahone until he finally purchases it at 155,000 pounds. He holds on to it for a few years, verifies its veracity, that it is indeed the authentic second missing painting, and sells it 3 years later for 4.5 million pounds to Sir Baron, the Lord Baron Rothschild, who donated it to the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, where it hangs today. That is the story of that painting. Says Rabbi Sachs, this story, which he personally researched and spoke about, the painting made a quick stop in London on its way to Israel, and he made a presentation about this particular story, reflects, he says, a certain truism. And that is, there are times where you could be holding on to a treasure. You could be holding on to a gold mine, as his children, Onion's children, were, and have no idea what you're looking at. And have no idea what you're looking at because nobody told you what it is. And in order, Rabbi Sachs says, to transmit value from generation to generation, each generation has to take something, value it, and then say to their children and to the next generation, this is the greatest treasure you can have. You can only bequeath down to someone else that which you actually love and value. And when it comes to our relationship with Hashem, we have to be a doresh to seek it and find it. And then when we find it, we treasure it. And only when we treasure it does it pass down from generation to generation. The Torah uses that word when it discusses the actual place of the Beis HaMikdash itself. We just saw a painting of its destruction. The actual temple itself, the Torah says, L'shichno tidrishu. Seek it out. Seek out the place which is going to be my home. The Ramban comments on that phrase. What do you mean, seek it out? He says 2 elements that manifests itself. Number 1, we're never told exactly where the place where the Beis HaMikdash is. It doesn't describe it anyway. Hashem always uses the language, the place that I will choose. The place that I will choose. David HaMelech, when he wanted to build the Beis HaMikdash, needed to find it on his own. He had to survey the entire city of Yerushalayim and figure out, this is the place that's going to be the holiest place. It is not told to us. Hashem did not come and say, that's going to be my home. We had to find it. Not only was its origins based on our own finding it, the Ramban writes, throughout all the generations, there were no street signs in Yerushalayim that pointed to the Beis HaMikdash. We're not allowed to put street signs, he says. The reason, when people would come to visit, they would go and they would come and say, they'd have to say, where's Yerushalayim? How do I get to the Beis HaMikdash? You have to ask. Part of the experience of going was trying to find it. Even though, okay, the first time you figure it out, there are no signs that just lead you along the way. You have to look and find it. And he writes so beautifully. And when they would ask, the people of Yerushalayim would say, oh, newcomer, come. Let me take you to Yerushalayim. Let me take you to the Holy Mount. Let me take you to the Beis HaMikdash. You want it? Come, let's go there together. You have to be able to seek in order to be able to find it. This idea is embodied by a famous story I'm sure that many of you have heard. Many of these stories go of a very wealthy businessman who comes to the yeshiva and says, I'd like to marry off my daughter to whoever can answer the following question. All of those stories I parenthetically love. The way that marriage was done was so different back then. You would never get away with saying such a story today. But that's how the story went. He comes to the yeshiva and he says, here's the question I'd like to pose. And whoever can answer, the smartest guy in the yeshiva, he's the one I'm going to marry. And he asks a question and everybody lines up. This wealthy guy, they can't figure it out. This one gives an answer and that one gives an answer. And all the top guys in the yeshiva, no one's able to come up with it. He stays for 2 days, listens to a series of answers, and eventually says, no, sorry, I'm going to the next yeshiva. Nobody here knows. Packs up his bags, gets on his horse and his carriage, and he drives off from the yeshiva. And as he's about a few hundred yards out of the yeshiva, he hears footsteps behind him. He turns around, and sure enough, there's a guy running out of the yeshiva trying to catch up. Stops the horse. The guy panting catches up. He says, do you have an answer for me? He says, no. But I need to know. What's the answer? And the guy says, you're the guy that I want. It's the one who wants to know what the answer is, who's seeking it out, who's asking, who's questioning. That is what it is that we need to be as we enter into this element of Rosh Hashanah, is to become one who seeks a relationship with Hashem. It does not fall into our laps on its own. It's something that we have to look for. It's something that we have to desire. It's something that we have to make time for, invest energy in. It's set up that way. Nothing spiritual happens on its own. If you're not a dorish, if you're not one who seeks, you're not one who looks, the treasure can literally be in your hands. You could be holding on to $1 million piece of artwork and throw it into your barn with the chickens, unless you look and find its value. And when we find its value, seeking it, then we bequeath that to every generation after. We give it to our children, we give it to our communities because it's on, and it doesn't happen. Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year where we strengthen ourselves to become a dorish, to become one who seeks, one who wants the relationship with Hashem, because only if we want it will we have it. That's simply the way that it works. That's one element of being a dorish. There's another element of being a dorish in our interpersonal relationships. We talk a lot about kindness. It's a very popular Jewish topic, and for good reason. There are two aspects when we talk about kindness, being a person of chesed, looking out for someone else, doing acts of kindness, and they're very broadly defined, these two different categories, one as proactive kindness and one as reactive kindness. Reactive kindness is the majority of the kindnesses that we do. A situation presents itself to us. Somebody calls us and asks, I need help. Can you help me? There. It's either we say yes or we say no, but it was put into our laps as something that we now have an opportunity to do. And hopefully most of the times when we're actually presented with that, we say yes. Somebody would come, I have to use an example from shul. I'm sitting in an empty shul yearning for everybody to come back. If you would see a guest or a visitor, there'd be somebody new in shul. And the rabbi would come over to you and say, this is so-and-so. He doesn't have a place for lunch. Can he come home with you? I'm on the spot. I put you on the spot. I asked if you could take a person home. So I would hope most people, unless there's a circumstance where they actually can't, they would say, yes, okay, sure, I'm happy to help out. And would even do it with a smile and with great kindness and warmth. That's reactive, where there's a situation that literally presents itself. Somebody knocks on your door, they stick out their hand and they say, please help me. I have a surgery that I need. I don't have any money. I don't have any food, and all the stories that we hear. And we have to react to do something. Something happens in the community. We find out somebody is sick and the people back at home need help. We jump in. There's another element of proactive kindness. It's an entirely different category in which it's not because something was handed to us that we have to respond to, but that we are looking to find ways to be giving, benevolent people to share our resources. Not because it came to our door and someone stuck out their hand, but I'm looking for it. How can I be a help? How can I contribute? There is a beautiful phrase when we talk about this, the idea of Rosh Hashana, described in the Sefer Nehemiah. Nehemiah, the prophet who led the Jews together with Ezra back to rebuild the second temple, the second Beis HaMikdash. And the Navi describes the scenario of Rosh Hashanah as they return to the lands. And Ezra and Nehemiah are teaching the Jews the laws, and the people begin to cry. That's what the Navi describes. They hadn't been observing Rosh Hashanah appropriately, and now they're learning and they begin to cry. And the Navi tells them, Al tivku ve'al tisavlu, don't mourn and don't cry. Today is not a day for crying. Today is not a day for tears. It's actually a day for celebration. It's a day to celebrate acknowledging Hashem as our King. And instead of crying, this is what I want you to do, he says to them. L'chu ichlu mishmanim, go home and eat your delicacies. Ushasu mamtuchanim, and drink your finest drinks. V'shilchu manos la'asher ein lachon lo, and go send food to those who don't have prepared. Because Hashem's strength is in your joy. He's looking down from on high and he wants to see how we celebrate him. And that's how Jews celebrate. What do we do when we celebrate? We have food, we have drink, and we send to those who need. And I just want to point out that language is such a powerful language. When the Navi tells the people to take care of those around them, he says, Shilchu, send food to those who don't have. Just want to think about that phrase for a moment. If somebody doesn't have food, if somebody doesn't have the ability to celebrate, he doesn't have the good food and the good drink, how do I know to send to him? If he came to my house and he knocked on my door and he said, I can't make yontif, I don't have, and I give him, that's not called send to those who need. That would be called give at your door to somebody who knocked and asked. To say, send to those who need is a statement that says, you go figure it out and send to them on your own. Not because they knocked on your door, because you took the time to be a dorish, to seek out, to think about it for a moment. Most of the times, when we don't respond, we don't reach out to somebody who needs our help, most of the time, it is not because we are cruel or apathetic or we didn't want to help. It's always because the phrase that goes through our mind over and over again is, oh, I didn't think about it. Oh, I didn't realize. Oh, I didn't know. And that's true. You didn't know. If you didn't think about it, you didn't know about it. The problem is that we're not actively seeking it out. To be a doresh means not just to respond, to look. Mordechai, at the end of Megillus Esther, is called Doresh Tov La'amo, one who seeks out for the good of all of the people, looking for how can we do good? How can we provide? How can the leadership of Persia at the time, how can we, a Doresh Tov, to seek out? And that is the second element of being a Doresh, one between our relationship with Hashem, to seek it out, to be one who's looking, wanting to grow, and one interpersonally between our relationship between ourselves and with Hashem and our friends, our colleagues, our community members. Somebody walks into shul, not because the rabbi asked you to host, because you saw someone walk in and you went over to them on your own and said, how can I help? what is your name? My name is so-and-so. Welcome to our shul. That proactive looking for opportunities and not waiting for someone to ask is the second element of being a dorish. The third element is within ourselves. To be a dorish, specifically in the ability to look for good. To be a dorish tov within ourselves, look for the good in our lives. Look for the good things, the blessings that we have. And that requires being a dorish. It requires seeking things out. I want to share with you a very quick story that happened in my own family. Rifki and I took the kids out for ice cream one day. We went away for a day. We took the kids out for ice cream, special treat, as is usually the part of the way that we celebrate anything, or even if not celebrating, everybody gets ice cream. Everyone got whatever they wanted, whatever size they wanted. It was a party at the ice cream store. Now, the way that it works in my family for years is that the youngest child, for whatever reason, always seems to choose flavors that are disgusting to everybody else. They're usually purple sorbet mixed in together with some type of ice cream and things that no one would ever think goes together. And that's what it seems they just always go for that. And our youngest, true to form, ordered a big cup with 2 scoops, much bigger than her eyes and her stomach could possibly handle. And it was this mixture of colors and flavors that wouldn't normally go together. And all the other kids got what they wanted. They got these big, whatever they got, milkshakes and shivers and all their different stuff. She got hers first, my youngest. And everybody sees that she's holding this big cup and there's no way she's finishing it. And a fight breaks out amongst all the other kids as to who's gonna get her leftovers. And this one claims, I got it first, I claim her leftovers. And this one said, well, you can have the bottom flavor, but I'm getting the top. And then this one said, well, I gave her something yesterday, so I should be entitled. So everyone's making an argument as to why they should be entitled to her leftovers. And meanwhile, while they're arguing, everybody gets their order. And I watched the following scene unfold in which each child is now given what they wanted, their choice, their big whatever, and they're holding it in their hand. And while they're holding what they want in their hand, they're arguing over who's gonna eat a half-melted, mixed-up, funny-looking flavor from the younger sibling, and they're holding in their hand what they want, and all they can fight about is who's gonna get the half-eaten leftovers. And that scene so reflects our lives in so many ways that we're actually holding what we want, what we need in our hands, and we're distracted by whatever is coming next, whatever else might be, even though it's not as good as what we have. And that is part of the human condition. We have 2 major challenges in being able to appreciate what we have. One is that story. We are always looking for the next. We're always looking what's going to be. We're literally eating what we have now, and it's already looking to be what's going. To be able to stop and simply enjoy what it is that I have. To be able to see, I have what I need, and I can enjoy it. I can stop and smell the coffee, smell the roses. Just enjoy it. We have a second challenge, besides for the fact that we're always looking, sometimes, you see at a kiddish, you're trying to talk to somebody and that person's already looking over your shoulders, like, who are they gonna say hello to now? Like, just focus on, every time I can reference some type of shul reference, I'm gonna do so, like to feel like we're back in shul. Just focus on what we're doing now. Second challenge that we have is that we are conditioned to notice what's wrong. Meaning, if you're looking at a painting, going back to our art examples, and there's clearly something off in the painting, there's a splotch, somebody messed up, whatever it may be, our eyes will always zero in on that which is wrong. This is a beautiful painting, and there's clearly a blemish in it. That's what we see. A child brings home a test from school, and it's a 98, and the first thing that we see is, which one did you get wrong? Well, you're focused on the wrong thing. Instead of asking, what did you do wrong here? What didn't you understand? We should go through the other 30 questions that they got right. But we're just attuned to that which is off. And that's partly because as human beings, we're attuned to Seder, to order. We want things to be the way that they're supposed to be. So we notice when it's wrong so that we can fix it. But the danger in that, the shortfall, the problem with that is we miss, instead of focusing on all that's good, we get totally distracted by that which is off. And that is a challenge. Those two challenges make it very difficult for us to appreciate what we have. Number one, we're looking to the next thing. And number two, we always highlight that which is off instead of that which is really right, that which it is that we actually have for right now. There's a phrase the Gemara says of Tichle Shana V'Kloloseha, let the year end with all of its curses. Rashi quotes this that we always read before Rosh Hashana. The parsha of the week always has a series in Parshas Kitavo of various calamities and curses that will befall the Jewish people if we don't follow the laws of the Torah. And Rashi points out, we read it, as the Gemara says, always right before Rosh Hashana. We should end its year and its curses. I'm sure there have been other years in history, but certainly in most of our lifetimes, this is a year where we could say that. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, who passed away in 1995, one of the great leaders in Israel, the great Torah scholars, used to say, didn't like it when his students would say that phrase, the year and its curses end. And he would say, for the very reason we were just saying, it's focusing on the wrong thing. Don't focus on the curses of the year. Don't focus on the problems, on the difficulties. There were so many good things also that happened this year. Focus on that. Celebrate that which it is that we have. And that is our third task on Rosh Hashanah. Again, to be a dorish our relationship with Hashem, to seek it, to think, what do I need to do to make it happen? Not to just cruise control through Rosh Hashanah, through life. How can I develop that relationship? How can I be a dorish in my interpersonal relationships, to be proactive in being able to do things, to seek out ways that I can contribute, and to be a doresh in the good in our lives. And I say that as a doresh, meaning on our own, we will skim through all the blessings and focus on the blemish in the painting. That's what we'll see. We'll see all the problems that we had. And we had problems this year. There were challenges, all of us. And they're continuing, as I said, I don't want to say any specific words that I'm not allowed to say. There were challenges. And we have to be a doresh to actively find the things and the blessings that we had, that we have, not that will be, not to look at right now in the environment that we have. Those of you who are coming to shul and those of you who can't come to shul, those of you who haven't seen grandchildren or children, I haven't seen my parents, I haven't seen my sisters, I just haven't. All the situations that we're in. And yet to be able to appreciate the blessings that we had requires Drasha. It requires a seeking out of them. On Rosh Hashanah, sit down at your holiday table and make a point to say that, to work it through whoever you're sitting with. What are the blessings that we have? I have been amazed, astounded, I have been uplifted by this community because I have spoken with many, many people over these last couple of months. And I hear so many times from people, yes, Rabbi, it's been so hard, but I have this or I have that. And they're noticing their blessings. They're appreciative of it. I have my health. Thank God things are good. It's a task to be encouraged. We've done it. We've made it. Thank God we have been overall healthy. Bli neder, we should continue. We should be vigilant. We cannot let up. We have to maintain all of the standards of protection that we have to continue. We have done a great job. We are exhausted. We are tired. This is old, I know, but we're going to be successful, continue moving forward, and we're going to be darshan in those three areas. In the Machzor, we're going to say in our Shmona Esrei, we say it all the time. We say to Hashem, Tikva tova lidorshecha. Give us good hope for those who seek you out. Lidorshecha. We, Hashem, are seeking you out. Give us good hope. Give us tikva tova lidorshecha. Especially this year, as we sit on Rosh Hashanah, we're going to seek you out. We're in the category of people called dorshecha. We seek you out. Give us good hope. At the very end of Musaf, the Hayom Tamseinu, Hayom Tivarchenu, we say all of these today. Give us one of them that we say is Hayom Tidrashenu Lit Tova. We say to Hashem, seek us out for good. Seek us out. Tidrashenu Lit Tova. Today, seek us out for good. I'd like to suggest, I think the simple meaning of that is seek us out and do good for us, but seek us out for the good that we have done. We're going to seek you out. We're going to seek our friends out. We're going to seek out the blessings you've given to us. And now we turn to you and we say, Hashem, seek us out for the good that we've done. Look past everything else and only focus on the good that we've done. If we're going to seek you out, you seek us out. And you find all of those things. And I conclude with one other language of Dorish that we say in the Navi Yirmiyahu, says, Tzion hi, Tzion, Yerushalayim, Doresh ein la. There is no one seeking her out. The Navi mourns. How can it be? There's no one seeking her out. And the Gemara comments on that verse. Obviously, if the Navi is bemoaning that no one is being a Doresh of Tzion, it requires Drasha. The only way to return is to seek her out. Let us become Darshim. Let us become those who seek this Rosh Hashanah wherever you will be, at home, in shul, inside, outside, it doesn't matter. Hashem is everywhere, and we coronate him as king, and we're going to be Darshim. We're going to seek out a relationship with him. We're going to seek out our friends and neighbors. Who can we call? Who can we knock on their door on Rosh Hashanah and say, I just want to wish you a good Yontiv, hope all is well. How can we be a Doresh within the good of our own lives to grow, to see the benefit, and in doing all of that to become Darshim, to become those who seek to return to Tzion, not just as a tourist, not just to say, let me back in to visit, to be a Doresh. Bring us home. That is the central theme of all of our davening on Rosh Hashanah. Yimloch Hashem li'olam. Reign, be the king. Elokayach Tzion. You are the God of Tzion, Lidor Vador. That's what we want to see. We want to return. We want to see you, Hashem, in your glory. And we are going to live as Dorshim in every aspect of our lives to make that happen. I wish you all a wonderful Yontiv. It's been such a treat and a pleasure to spend a few minutes getting ready for Yontiv together. Wherever you'll be, I hope I'll have a chance either to see you, either before or after, to wish you good Yontiv, and to continue as we, on this journey that we embark on, getting ready for Yontiv and entering into the new year, 5781. May it be a year of blessing, a year of good health, a year of seeking growth in every way. Together as a shul, as a community, Rifki and I both together wish you a wonderful Yontiv, Shana Tova, a good Gesundheit year, health and blessings for everybody. It is such an honor and a privilege for us to be the Rabbi and Rebbitzin of this wonderful shul, and we look forward to a year of continued blessings together. Have a wonderful Yontiv.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you so very much. Shana Tova.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. It was wonderful. Have a healthy year with you and your family.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your sermon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good gebenched year.
Good gebenched year to everyone. Thank you. Hi,
Very
Kelly,
good.
Marcy, and Rebecca, all the way in Atlanta, Georgia. How are you guys?
Now everyone's turning on the camera. No, these people are not.
Jimbo, I see you too. So nice to see you.
Yes. Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you. Amen.
Shana Tova. There you go.
Okay.
Shana Tova, Mituka, sweet and a healthy and a beautiful year for everybody.
Not too Thank you for all your help. Will people be able to see it tomorrow also?
Yes, yes, it's recorded and we'll post it so anybody can see it. Mr. Mendel, how are you? Great to see you. I can't hear you. Your sound is off. Your sound is off. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. How are you, Mr. Kimmel? Good to see you, everyone. Have a great Yontif.